Welcome to the Raise podcast. I'm Carol Barwick. We're here to raise your confidence and inspire your creativity. Each episode, we will have a different guest who will be discussing our Raise word. The Raise word is a word that will encourage you or empower you and at times inspire you to explore the word a little more for yourself. Well, hello everybody and welcome to the Raise podcast. I'm Carol Barwick. We have got a wonderful guest this morning. I wanted to just read you what her bio says because it's just so interesting, and then we're going to introduce her fully. So it's Cara Jackson and she's from AMS Sensory Creations, and she says that AMS Sensory Creations make unique artworks designed to open up environments to be explored with all the senses. Our art adventures help people with sensory needs from dementia, learning disabilities, or any other reason to explore the world in new ways. And the word we're going to be looking at today is sense. And my guest is Cara Jackson. Good morning, Cara. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning. I'm good, thank you.
Cara, what a bio. It just sounds so interesting. Before we really deep dive into all that it means to have your environment explored with all the senses, what does the word sense mean to you?
So I think it means different things depending on different kind of where I am or what I'm in, kind of what I'm doing. But I think kind of the way you perceive things, the way you experience and how, and just how that can be different for everybody. And just because I smell something or hear something and it makes me feel a certain emotion or a certain thing, in somebody else it could be complete opposite, particularly with smell. I think it can it can evoke different emotions, and it's the way you experience the world, and particularly if you don't have one sense or something happens to heighten a sense, it can change the way you experience something, which is really interesting.
Absolutely. So I'm going to jump right in there because I don't have a sense of smell. I haven't had a sense of smell since I was about 12. They think it's probably something to do with trauma that I had as a child, and I've kind of blocked that sense off. But I'm really interested in what you're saying about how we all experience things differently, because the classic question I get when I say I can't smell is, can you taste? And I say, I think so, but I don't know the kind of things and the way that you're tasting. So for years and years and years, I used herbs in cooking. And it wasn't until I got married that I discovered that herbs actually had a different taste. I didn't know. I thought you just put them in because that's what you're meant to do. I didn't realize that actually the taste enhances the different things that you're cooking with. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I love that idea that different people experience things in different ways. What was it that made you want to really explore this in so much detail?
So a few things, really. I think, so I have a background in working with people with learning disabilities, and that's really broad. I've worked with lots of different people. So people who have Down syndrome or autism, right across the board. You name a learning disability, I've probably met somebody who has it. And with them, particularly people with communication differences or difficulties, where they don't necessarily use speech or even recognized sign language to communicate, they would communicate through their senses.
Yeah.
So they might pick up something like where we would, I don't know, see an object and we would sort of describe it or be able to say, you know, can you pass me the blue cup or whatever it is. They would more kind of like explore it with their touch and with their mouths a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And just because I worked with adults mostly, and there's not a lot of the sort of resources and materials for, because I did a lot of work in day centres, so I had to come up with kind of activities, meaningful activities for how these people spend their day.
Yeah.
And there is some stuff out there, but a lot of it is aimed at children and it's not age appropriate. So I made my own stuff. And they like sometimes would destroy it, would rip it up. And I thought, actually, that's not them like just destroying it. That's how they experience it and explore it, because the feedback they get from ripping something, and like that's actually, although it looks like destructive, messy behavior and can be kind of annoying when you've spent ages making this resource and it just gets ripped up. But then that's actually like them kind of getting feedback to them, and it calms them down, and it was just that kind of, actually not everybody experiences the world through their senses in the same way. And then kind of more recently, my mum actually, and some other close people to me were diagnosed with dementia.
Yeah.
And just seeing the ways that kind of senses in particular, and the way you process sensory information kind of changes with the brain, like when the changes in the brain happen, was just really interesting. And I thought, actually, like it's an interesting thing to explore and to allow people to experience like the world in a way they can cope with. Because I'd also noticed, particularly with the people with dementia, that sensory overload is a real kind of thing, particularly with visual information and also sound. And also just I'd forgotten about this actually, but because it's just always been there. But my husband also has high functioning Asperger's, and he is very hypersensitive to sound. And there are particular sounds that actually cause him physical pain. It's like his skin is on fire. So that kind of thing really, like, I thought, actually, some stuff happened and I ended up losing, I got made redundant, and I kind of thought, well, I've got this time now, let me see if I can like put effort into actually make, and I found like making art and doing things really helpful to process the whole redundancy and all of that stuff. And then I thought, actually, I can make things that help people who work in similar environments to what I did, and then and also benefit me, because hopefully it'll end up as a little business eventually. It's got a bit put on hold for various reasons, but yeah, that was the kind of inspiration.
Wonderful. Yeah, so we'll go on to that. I can't remember what you called it, a little change that you've had. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I just wanted to go back to what you were saying about giving these the adults that you worked with something and them ripping it up. and destroying it. Because what I'm hearing in what you're saying already is that senses are different for everybody. They have to be. And so the tolerance levels, they've got to be completely different. I think it's a really good way for us to respect and understand just how different people are. And even when you were talking about how we would take a blue cup and know it was a blue cup, I know there are people listening. In fact, we've had an incredible podcast guest recently who's visually impaired. So to say we would take a cup, even at that point, not everybody would even do that. And it's that beautiful tapestry of so many different ways of experiencing and exploring the way that you do things. And I think to a degree, language has got to come into it, because you quite normally would use the word destructive because that's how it felt, that they were destroying it. But actually, if we use the word, they took it and they explored it until it was in pieces, feels very different. And I think very much about teachers, and particularly children that may have ADHD or Asperger's, and the idea that they're being annoying, or they're being destructive, or they're being unhelpful. And actually, if we can change that language to they're being highly sensitive, or they're being, and what you're doing, Cara, is starting to explore those conversations around what does it look like to be destructive, and I loved the idea that it was shown to me a long time ago when I was doing an art class with children, that actually destruction goes hand in hand with creativity, and they're kind of different, opposite ends of the same scale, because those people that can create can destruct, and vice versa. And who knows what that person that was ripping up the piece of paper actually thought they might be doing, and who's to say. And so I love the way that you've opened up that conversation through looking at things in a different way. But you said that you have had a little change in your life recently, that things have changed a little bit. Tell us about that, because that is surely going to change your sensory perceptions. So you're having a baby, congratulations. How has that changed your kind of sense of who you are and what's going on for you?
Yeah, so in a very direct way, I think, thinking about particularly the physical senses, I think I've been actually quite surprised by how pregnancy has changed my physical, particularly my sense of smell. Actually, I have almost the opposite to having no sense of smell. I have an incredibly heightened sense of smell. So it's been quite interesting creating kind of sensory products and things. And I've been really trying to, because where I've made a few things, like introducing smell in particular is quite tricky, because I have to make sure that it's something that's not going to kind of change over time and all of that stuff. But then I've been finding that some of the stuff I've been using, I can't really do that anymore because it doesn't appeal. But so yeah, in that really kind of direct way, it's changed. But also just I think just as like I now, because I'm reasonably quite far along, I now experience touch from the inside, which is kind of changed my sense of, and also just my sense of kind of like perception. There's a posh word for it. Is it proprioception? The sense of where you are in space and balance and that kind of thing, that you're not going to bump into things when you walk. I can't remember the posh word for it, but anyway, that has really changed because my sense of gravity is changing, and everything. And yeah, it's been I won't go into the whole story, but this is a pregnancy that's been 10 years in the making. So the changes have been quite like surprising, and kind of obviously the first kind of few months or whatever you kind of expect, and like but then it's been kind of interesting but tricky at times, but and just like in terms of actually making some of the things, I've had to change the way I do things because I can't necessarily sort of bend over if there's something in the way. So just exploring senses in a different way, and aware that there's like a baby inside of me that's also developing senses, and I can, if there's a loud noise, then she'll jump and that kind of thing, which is kind of it's going to be an interesting journey as well, with like seeing her explore the world through her senses before they're all fully developed and stuff. So
absolutely. Do you do anything like sing or talk to her at the moment? I know some people, I mean, I always did that. We always talked to Seb, and I think his love of music has really started when he was still inside me. Do you ever do that kind of thing?
Yeah, we do. We have this nice little routine now in the evenings as we're getting ready for bed. We which is when she's at her most active. So we like my husband and I, we kind of set aside some time, and we sometimes we'll sing to her or play music to her, or sometimes we'll read her a story. We've got like books of stories and books that we both had when we were little, and we will share them with her when she's actually here, but we've been reading them to her like already, which has been, and we're, because my husband's a little bit older than me, so we have slightly different we grew up in slightly different kind of times, I guess. Well, not times, but we have different stories from childhood. So that's been really nice, and I let him do most of the reading, like, so he gets his like little bonding moments with the bump, which is quite nice.
That's lovely. That's really lovely. And it's a lovely feeling, isn't it, to think that this kind of being inside is sensing things from us. And I mean, I know that anecdotally with the stress and that kind of thing, they can pick up on that, but also the joy and the love and the all those kind of things they pick up on too. And that's so important that they get a sense so early on of who we are, particularly as mothers, but obviously also as fathers, but because baby's inside us, they get a sense of who we are and how we are, and that's a really exciting thing, I think. I'm really enjoying finding out all the ways that Cara is reaching out to other people. You can also reach out to us here at Raise. You can find us on Facebook, Raising Confidence, Inspiring Creativity Community, or you could pop us a 5-star rating on the musical platform that you're listening to right now. Back to the episode. So, Cara, we've been talking about sense, and as I'm talking, there is a rather fantastic lion that is, well, I was going to say poking out, but he's really not poking out, and that seems quite rude to say that about such a majestic being. He is positively roaring behind your left shoulder. Tell me something about that lion and what it kind of signifies in terms of sense, but also for you as an artist?
Yeah, so I've created this piece. It's rather large. I think it's probably on an A2-ish canvas. I'm not very good at, but anyway, it's the biggest kind of sensory thing that I've done. So it's like the head of a male lion, with his face, like as in eyes, nose, mouth, taking up most of the canvas, and then his mane, and I've used like lots of different materials to make it so when you run your fingers over it, you will get lots and lots of different textures. The whiskers are actually lengths of wire, and when you run your fingers over them, they kind of bash together and make a noise. I tried to get some kind of roaring noise integrated into it, but I couldn't figure out how to do that without either making it really complicated or just making it look a bit tacky. So so the whiskers make the noise. He's got really like orange. I used like orange cellophane stuff for the eyes. So they're actually in different lights, because it's like a plasticky. It'll kind of catch the light in different ways, just like eyes do. And then the main is somebody who I know. She makes quilts, patchwork thing, and she often gives me like her scraps because she uses really interesting materials. So she gave me a whole bag. I told her what I was doing, that I was making this lion, and she picked out sort of things that were the right kind of color, so browns, oranges, reds, that kind of thing, with these really interesting patterns on. So the main is like the textures and things are in the face and in the whiskers, and then the mane I've gone for a variety of, like, for visual variety, but I've cut out kind of like wavy shapes of all these different materials and stuck them on with like double-sided tape, so you can still kind of manipulate them. I have had somebody who I know is a puller test it to make sure it doesn't all fall apart. So it's yeah, and then the sort of edge of the mane I actually finger knitted with chunky wool, so it's all different kind of heights and textures and
I was going to ask about that, because I can see that the edge of the face is kind of popping out.
Yeah,
the whole thing. So it's finger knitted. Okay.
Yeah, it's finger knitted, and yeah, it was chunky wool like to begin with. So I was just going to put it on there, but then I thought actually there's strips of wool in other places, and it just kind of lifts the whiskers off the face as well a little bit. So it kind of, yeah, it just adds to it. I think it kind of adds height and interest, because also I now work with people with a visual impairment. So and eventually when I can, I'll take this in to work, and then there's some people there who are completely blind, so with that raised height they can see the definition, or they can feel where the definition of the face is, and the which is why I've made the eyes and the nose and the mouth are all a different texture as well, so that they can pick out like the actual details of the face. And he was made, I've entered it into a competition that had a brief around, I think the theme was awe and wonder. And I was just thinking of that in context of kind of like what evokes that feeling in me, and like it's I've named it Majesty, the lion, and that then kind of evokes the awe and wonder, and I think with all the different, like there's furry stuff, like I think that's still kind of where you can feel all the and experience all the different kind of textures and things. I think that like kind of evokes that feeling still, as well as visually. I think it kind of puts that across as well.
Yeah, lots of things kind of running through my head. Mainly I can't get it out of my head because I'm such a wordy person that I would have called it raw and wonder. But Majesty is so much more. Oh no, Majesty is so much better, so much more beautiful. But I just can't help a pun.
No, I have a pun too, and I'm annoyed I didn't think of that.
But no, it's wonderful. I was also, it's interesting, again, going back to perception, because you're saying about the whiskers and how they make a jangly sound and how you couldn't get a roar. But for people that don't hear, they won't ever hear a roar. And so the feel of the whiskers and the feel of their fingers going through the whiskers may evoke their own feeling of sound. That if you'd put a roar in it and said, oh, if you can't hear the roar, then it's not a lion, actually would take some of that, their experience away from them. So I think what you're doing is you're allowing for the most amount of people to get the most amount of experience out of it, which is so important. I know I worked in a special needs school years ago, probably about 20 years ago now, and I worked with secondary school children, and we did reading, and we used the Oxford Reading Tree scheme. So any teachers listening will know that's normally for primary school children, but we were working with children that were visually impaired and were deaf. And so we would do things like use, if we talked, I think there was a book called The Cold Day, and we did things like we used ice cream and they ate it, and we had a fan and it was going, and we used ice so that they could feel it. And for me, as someone that has, apart from smell, really all their senses very intact and at times fully heightened, it was so exciting to have this full experience of a book that children normally just read the words out of, not even particularly interesting. And suddenly it was like some kind of, I don't know, almost like an adventure world that we'd kind of given these young people. And with that lion, you're giving them the opportunity to kind of experience it in a new way. How, this is an on-the-spot question, and maybe it's something to really get the listeners to think about as well. How would you incorporate taste into this piece of artwork?
Yeah,
maybe a lion bar.
Well, yes. For this one particular, yeah, I've not. Taste is something that I've really been thinking about, and eventually once baby's here and I'm able to do this a bit more kind of regularly and properly, that doesn't sound like proper English, but yeah, once I'm able to kind of commit a bit more time to it, I'm gonna like make kind of sensory adventure packs that will probably include, rather than me providing things that people can taste, it will include ideas of how you can. I've done like a prototype one about a woodland walk. I've done a painting of a kind of textured print similar to the line of trees, and then there's a sound chip in it, so you can hear the leaves rustling, and then I've I've made like a little sort of booklet that goes with it that says about like what grows in a forest that you can eat and taste, and what do leaves smell like and things like that. But for the lion, yeah, I'm not sure. I do know that yeah, both taste and smell. I did kind of do a little bit of research, and apparently lion poo is the smelliest substance known to man. But I didn't think that would be very very appropriate.
It's the collecting of it, Cara. I'm
well,
just
yeah,
not sure.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how I would really do
how
that.
you would do that, and whether there would be many people willing to collect it on a regular basis for you.
Oh yes, exactly. And it's not something I can advocate to people to go and find. Wet leaves in a forest is fine, but not.
Yes,
not
we'll stick with a woodland walk with smells and some tastes, and the lion can just stay being
I am
touch.
Yes, I am going to do a safari animal kind of thing. So maybe something that, I don't know, maybe some kind of African thing, that not what a lion would eat, but like what you might find if you went to Africa. What I don't know, some kind of African fruit or something. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because it expands it out. It can be so multicultural, so you can get so many more people involved in it. I mean, there will be people that have been on safari, but there will be people that obviously work with these creatures day in, day out. So who knows, what this journey might take you on. I do want to just talk a little bit, if it's okay, about the dementia side of it, and how you're starting to use all the different senses to work with your mom and with these other people, because I know that a lot of our listeners will experience dementia in different ways. Tell us a little bit about
that. So yeah, when I was working with the people with learning disabilities, people with Down syndrome, it's very common that they also get dementia, and they tend to get it quite early. So I have had, I count it as a privilege, to care for a number of people, two of which very closely, who have been on their journey with dementia. And now although I don't live that near my mum, obviously she's my mum, so I'm kind of closely involved. So I'm on, she's still in the early stages. But I mean, he sadly passed away last year, but I worked very closely with one gentleman who had dementia, and it progressed quite rapidly. And then he kind of it affected his kind of physical skills, so he lost his like mobility and stuff, and he had to spend a lot of time like in bed. And I used to kind of sit with him, and it was really him and some of the others, but mainly him, that kind of inspired me actually making these things like that they could explore in different ways, because he was like, his world was his bedroom, or really just his ceiling, because he wasn't really kind of able to explore, like to get out and sort of mobilize or even sit up towards the end. So I took in kind of a box of, I'd have different themes and stuff. We had the occupational therapists who worked with our care home ran a competition for all the service users that she worked with to they do a carnival locally, like a similar to Notting Hill Carnival but much smaller, locally to here, and they ran a competition for people, like disabled people, to make headdresses. So I did that activity with him. He didn't really make it, I did it, but you know, the materials that we did, I like rubbed them on his cheek, or and I got reactions. Some of them weren't, some of them were him turning his face away, and I thought, actually that's communication, that's triggered something. And I was able to, like, because I'd cared for him, like, or worked with him, supported him for a number of years, I kind of knew, like, his interests and likes and things. And he really liked chocolate mousse. So, like, towards the end, he developed some swallowing problems and couldn't eat it. But we still, like, used to incorporate, you know, chocolate mousse with, like, in, so he could feel it, and he could, like, and you could see that triggered something. We would obviously we got permission from his medical team, but we could, like, rub it on his lips and things, so, you know, so he could still have the taste. So that side of things. And then with my mum on the kind of other end, I guess, like, she is starting to kind of lose her memory. It is quite hard, I'm sure. And it's affected her emotions a lot. She's not really in control of her emotions. And so I've, like, because of my kind of experience and some of the things that I've kind of you know, have from products I've made and stuff, I've taken them when we've gone to visit, and she's I get my kind of love of arts and crafts and stuff from my mum, so she's always made things. And she's not really got the coordination to kind of make much, but she just sits there and kind of plays with a ball of wool and just runs it through her fingers and things. Although she has like managed to remember how to knit, which I didn't think she could. I thought she kind of, so she has knitted some stuff for baby. It's taken a long time, like a lot longer than other people, but yeah, that's special. So yeah, just, and actually when she's in that kind of emotional, like, heightened state where she can't kind of bring herself down, you know, I've said, just, you know, grab something that, because for her, you know, she's always created something or made something, and that's helped her kind of come, like, in the past, and it's now helping, like, now that she's kind of, I guess, losing that control and those memories, but she's still got, like, yeah, she's still, like, touching the ball of wool or whatever it is,
she's accessing,
brings her back to that place.
She's accessing it in the way that she now can manage, isn't she? I think the brilliant thing, Cara, is that you are noticing how important it is that people can access things, because sadly there will be people that saw your gentleman friend who loved chocolate mousse and now can't swallow, and would think, we won't bother then, we just won't do anything, you know, out of fear or out of ignorance. And yet it's like those questions around, what do you mean we can't? We must be able to do something, you know. He's still here. He still wants to experience things. And the way that you helped him to choose the materials to go on the headdress, it's that ability and the absolute importance of making sure that people still experience things, even if other people have kind of written them off and say, well, they haven't got this sense or this sense, so therefore they can't experience it anymore. And I think that's the gift that you're giving to your mum, to say, you know, we'll just touch the ball of wool, you know, I'm giving you access to it. and she's experiencing in the way that she now can. And I think that's a real gift that you're giving to people. And it's incredibly important because you are accessing and communicating with a whole group of people that, for all intents and purposes, other people have kind of said, well, that's it now, so that's, I really want to encourage you in that. And I know that you're saying once baby's here and grown up a little bit, you can really do more. But well done for doing what you're doing already. I think it shows real determination, and shows how much importance you place on being able to enable people to kind of use all their senses, the senses that they have, to make sense of the world, I guess. I think that's really important. Was there anything else that you wanted to say before we wrap up the episode?
No, I don't think so. I think we've covered everything I was thinking of.
We've covered a lot, haven't we? And there's so much more to cover. I wanted to talk about ASMR. I do want to do this because I think it will be quite amusing. So ASMR is autonomous sensory meridian response. I've always wanted to do that. And apparently that means that everybody should now be tingling. So it's on a postcard if you're all tingling now. But there's so much to talk about when it comes to the senses, isn't there? But I do feel like we've talked about the important bit today. And I really appreciate the time that you've taken. We get to the part of the podcast where I write a little on-the-spot poem, and there's been so much that's come out of it. I'm really not sure what's going to happen next. Just give me a few seconds to just have a think. Making sense of the world is an individual thing. What might feel like something to someone might make someone else sing. You may smell an emotion. You may hear a rainbow. I never understood that. But now it's a bit more clear, though I realize that everybody is different. But they all deserve the chance to see and to hear, to move and to dance in the way that they understand. And by us taking a hand and saying, how do you do? How do you sense the world? What can I do to reach out and help you to make sense? That was all over the place. All over the place. Cara, thank you so much for helping us to make a bit more sense of what you do and the world that you are helping other people to explore. Every blessing with your continued pregnancy. And we'll make sure that we get a picture of that lion so that people can see it. And very much hope that in the future people will be able to access it in different ways, because they've been reproduced and they're all over the place because you're doing such amazing things. So thank you so much for your time, Cara. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Raise podcast. We hope you feel raised and inspired by this episode. Whilst we're not offering face-to-face classes currently, we are doing online singing lessons where you can have your voice raised as well as your confidence. If you would like to find out more, please visit our website at www.raiseforall.com or find us on social media on either our Facebook or Instagram page. Take care.